boom, and that thump, and you feel it go through your chest, and shook the Humvee.
Oh shit!
And
you shit your pants.
No, I did not. I'm lucky because I
didn't come home with the Purple Heart. He came with some brown underwear.
I was there's another story about that, but
and for what?
Recording.
Are we live?
Yeah.
All right. What's up, Sucka? What's up, man? We're live. I think what's today? Episode 25, Josh.
I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. That's my producer right there. We're on top of things.
Yes, episode 25. I believe so.
Wondering why they're dropping like flies. Yeah, we got a special guest today, man. I've got my actual blood little brother. I know I call some people brother and this and that, but this is my little brother. I think we have the same parents.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Chris Hernandez. For those of you who know my brother. A lot of people didn't know that I had a brother 2 years younger. What, you're 50 now?
I'm 50, yeah.
Yeah, August 4th, right? You turn 50?
Yeah, thanks for telling everyone, but
Yeah, August 4th, yeah. Anyone want to look him up, his social.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my brother Chris. He's class of what, 85? No, 89, yeah. I was class of 87. We're having a 35-year reunion. Some of these classes look pretty rough. I'm watching the reunion pictures and I'm like, woo, that looks like the class of Jurassic Park. But yeah, man. So we got you came out tonight, man. And it's good. Finally, we've been trying to do this one for a minute. So we could start off. You are a retired military.
Yeah, so I'm a former Marine. I served 6 years in the Marine Reserve here in San Antonio, and I did absolutely nothing in the Marine Corps.
Awesome. But join the Marines. You hear that, people? If you want to do absolutely nothing for the first 6 years.
Yeah, I'm a very proud Marine who did nothing in the Corps.
Put bumper stickers on cars around town.
I think I mowed some lawns and probably painted some rocks or something. It's been a long time. I don't remember. But then, then I went to the Army National Guard. And as a soldier, I was a tank crewman and a cavalry scout, and then I finished up in military intelligence. I was a human intelligence collector. So I spent a year in Iraq.
That sound a human intelligence
collector.
Sound like you cut people's heads off and take them back.
No, nothing that fun. It was actually
boring.
It was really interesting. Oh, in Afghanistan, it was really interesting.
Okay, so you were in Afghanistan doing this.
I was in Afghanistan doing this job, but it was nothing like what we were trained to do. You're actually operating informants. That's what I did in human intelligence.
You got snitches.
We got snitches, right. And it took us a little while to figure out, not very long, but every single informant over there, every single one was full of shit. All of them. Probably just like the cops who work narcotics informants, they're all liars.
So what are they lying to? They'll just make up shit because you give them stuff in return, or just to get not arrested?
Yes. Okay, so there's the guys who were trying to get out of trouble.
Okay, first of all, let's back. What year were you in Afghanistan?
09.
In 09. So in 09, and this is in the heat of the... Where were you?
I was in Kapisa province up in the northeast on a French fire base.
Which is a very hostile area?
It wasn't the worst place in the country. The worst places were down south, so Kandahar, Helmand province. But up in the northeast in Kapisa, it was pretty hot. It wasn't the worst, but it definitely was not the safest either.
Okay, and so you're over there and working with snitches.
Well...
Liars.
Yes. So my primary job was I was working what are called sources, which were the local informants. So all of them are working an angle. All of them. They're all either trying to just get money, or they're trying to get revenge on someone they hate, or they owe somebody money, so they're trying to get us to kill them.
Oh, really? They're setting people up and stuff?
Yes. They're all kinds of... They all had some ulterior motive. Didn't mean they weren't telling the truth about stuff sometimes.
There's embellishing a lot.
But there's embellishing a lot. There's outright lies, and it becomes an art form trying to figure out, like, okay, what actually are they telling the truth about? And, where to, like, okay, well, I got 3 guys, and they're all reporting on the same thing. They're all giving us the same information about this one piece, and so that's how we're figuring out what's real and what's not. But the way we did it, I figured, because when I was in Iraq, I thought our military intelligence was pretty much worthless most of the time. Like, we would get reports before a convoy.
When were you in Iraq?
05.
In 05. So 4 years difference.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and I was escorting supply convoys in Iraq. So we would get these intel reports from Iraq that, or, from our guys while we were over there, like before a convoy, saying, oh, there's a report about enemy insurgents in white and orange Toyota Corollas. And I'm like, motherfucker, can I cuss on this?
Yeah, okay. Well, when it gets to the priests and the nuns, when they start clicking on it, I don't know, they might get a little upset.
All right. So about 80% of the cars over there are white and orange Toyota Corollas. So we get these.
That's the color.
That's the color. It's like
they're all Bengals fans.
Yeah, be on the lookout for these Corollas. Like they're everywhere. Bengals. Yeah. So I figured when I was in Afghanistan, I was brand new in the intelligence world, and I figured if we're not out there with the infantry doing what they're doing, where they're doing it, we aren't going to be worth anything. And
you're getting bullshit intelligence,
right? So we wouldn't be able to tell what's useful and what's not. So we were out with the infantry all the time.
So where are you? How are you gathering these informants? Are you just hearing like someone says, "Hey, that nigga over there, he snitches," and are you like who? How are you figuring out who to talk to?
Most
they
of them,
approach y'all?
No, most of them. Sometimes that happened, but most of the time, when we got in country, the team that we replaced was already in communication with them. So we just took over communication.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we developed a few while we were there.
So who were y'all after? The Taliban?
The Taliban.
Taliban?
There was the Taliban. There was Al-Qaeda. There was the Haqqani network.
I haven't heard of the Haqqani network. Have you, Josh?
No.
Yeah, it's one of the aligned groups. Then the
it's one of the new. I think I saw them on TikTok.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
doing a lot of TikTok videos. They're real popular on TikTok. That's why I'm not on there. That's why I didn't. I must have missed them.
Then there was the Hezb Islami Gulbuddin, which is the
guys
the
I
Party
know
of God. Yeah, I think it's a rap group. That Party of God from Hekmatyar Gulbuddin.
They were signed by Wu-Tang. They all look like Pitbull. They're just like
Yeah, that was another aligned group with the Taliban that was real. They had a real strong presence in our area. So yeah, we were fighting all of them.
So these informants would tell you. Like, would they be like, I think those are Taliban and those are Hizmati Hilal and those are ISIS or whatever? They would know the difference, or
yeah, some of them would know the difference, and sometimes
they were like aligned with one group and not. Are they beefing with each other too?
The guys who we were fighting against, they were all loosely aligned, so they weren't fighting with each other. There was just kind of minor squabbles occasionally.
Yeah. Like they all went to Jeff.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Central Catholic versus Holy Cross kind of, but they're all still Catholic schoolboys, right?
Yeah, they were all going to just fight it at the Raspa, at the Raspa Fest.
Later on, after I was gone and ISIS showed up in Afghanistan, ISIS and the Taliban are enemies. ISIS and Al-Qaeda are enemies. A lot of people don't know that.
Really?
Yeah.
Because their head cutting techniques are different or what?
It's a really complicated...
It's their interpretation of the Quran?
No. They agree on the interpretation of the Quran.
Oh, really?
They disagree on methods. And so Al-Qaeda didn't think that the time was right to establish the caliphate. The Islamic government that's supposed to take over the world. Al-Qaeda didn't think the time was right. ISIS did it anyway. And then some guys from Al-Qaeda went and said they were joining ISIS. They were there for a short time and then left. And then they denounced ISIS, went back to Al-Qaeda, and it turned out they were just there spying. And so ISIS actually wrote an article about them, called them the Jews of Jihad, because back in the first days of Islam, there were some Jews who went and said, oh, we're Muslims now. And they were just there spying, and then they went back to the Jewish
Trojan
people.
horsed them, huh?
Exactly, yeah. Well, not exactly.
Not exactly.
They weren't attacking. They were just
gathering information.
They were just spying on them so they could report it back.
Benedict Arnold them.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so since then, Al-Qaeda and ISIS hate each other.
Since the few dudes slipped into the party and gathered up some info and put back in. So wow. So how long has that beef been going on? Thousands of years. How long have those two groups been around? Are they new? Are they relatively new groups?
Well, Al-Qaeda has been around since the 90s.
Oh, so they're pretty new.
ISIS was formed out of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, but ISIS actually, I think they formed in like 2012, 2013. So they're not very old.
So do you think, since you've been to Afghanistan and Iraq and you've done intelligence, and you know what's going on at the border here right now. You got all the Haitians coming through. The wet blacks is what I guess they call them now. Because
I hadn't heard that before. if you say that's what they call them, okay.
Well, I mean they're black.
That's what Edward calls them.
That's what I call them. Anyway,
that's not what FMCW calls them or anybody else.
So they're all coming and people are tripping, but they keep saying that they're slipping in terrorists through them. Or do you think those Haitians, do they join ISIS and all that stuff?
Well, everybody joins ISIS, right? So there's people from all over the
Josh
world.
He's trying to get in right now.
Beard, but people from all over the world joined ISIS. So
what's the appeal of ISIS?
So ISIS they are following what they see as the literal interpretation of Islam as it was laid down in the very beginning of Islam, right?
Yeah.
So
who doesn't?
Yeah. So they're saying we follow all the rules exactly And so this is one of the things that I have a real strong interest in: extremism, terrorism, stuff like that. And I study a lot of what these guys say, what they write, the videos they make. And there's this idea people have that ISIS is just a bunch of savages running around murdering people, cutting heads off, raping women, and all that stuff, and that they don't care what they're doing. That is absolutely not true.
Yeah, there's a mission. They have a total mission.
It's not just that there's a mission, but there is a very strict set of rules, and they are following those rules to the letter. So in their view, if Islam, as they interpret it, if it permits cutting people's heads off, raping female prisoners, all that, it's moral. It's good. If Islam says don't do it, then they don't do it. They are really incredibly concerned with moral purity. It's weird. So
women don't have any rights.
Actually, they do. Women under Islam, women have certain rights. They're not just property.
Are there women ISIS members?
Yeah, there's a lot of ISIS brides. Definitely, there were a lot of women who went over there to marry guys, to marry ISIS members.
I saw the Bride of Chucky was on the other day. It's kind of like that. It seems kind of similar. The Bride of ISIS.
I never watched that. That might be it, but
the Bride of ISIS is scarier, dude. I heard. Dude.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So, wow. So they're just they think that they're following that their God is saying to be like that violent and just and kill people.
Yeah.
And is it the more they suffer is that when they're sending the message, or why are they so? No. Why is it like beheading? Why isn't it like just shoot them and get it over with?
Because there's a quote from Muhammad, from the Prophet, the guy who founded Islam, that you should smite at the necks of the unbelievers,
and that means cut their heads.
And so they take that to mean cut their heads off.
What if smite at the neck meant? Like give him hickey. Give him a hickey kiss. Him on the
totally
neck.
Misinterpreted. Yeah.
On the south side,
I meant a love bite.
Yeah, just a little nibble, little neck nibbles. Like,
well, I guess they're all going to hell then.
Yeah. Watch out, you can't say
poor
that.
Poor guys. Yeah.
So wow, so you did each time you went to war. I remember you going. I remember mom and dad being really worried when you went off to war. But how long were you gone each time? I don't really remember.
I was in Iraq for there was almost 6 months train up before I went.
Where do you train to go to Iraq? El Paso?
No, I trained for Iraq at Fort Hood.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I was over there for 11 months.
For 11 months? And how did it seem like 11 years or?
Yeah, because Iraq especially, all that we were doing was escorting supply convoys. So we were pulling these.
That seems like that'd be scary.
It was incredibly boring while at the same time being extremely dangerous, right? Yeah. So we're pulling 20 or 30 civilian 18-wheeler trucks. Almost all the time we had just contract drivers.
What do you mean 20 or 30 a day? 20
or 30 each convoy. So, and typically...
How often do you do convoys?
Typically it was one a day. And so a convoy is, you're at your base, you go to the truck yard, you pull your 30 trucks. They're driven by civilian contract truck drivers from all over the third world. So we had guys from Fiji, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Uganda. Most of them can't talk to each other. They have no radios. We can't talk to them. They have no armor protection. They have no weapons. Very few of them speak English.
And they got jobs over there doing this.
They got jobs over there because it pays great compared to what they can earn at home.
Wow.
So they take these contract jobs. We would have 3 Humvees. Each one of them had 3 guys. We were lucky if we had a 10th guy. So, our team was 9 or 10. And we just drive herding these 20 or 30 18-wheeler trucks. And, from day one in the Marine Corps, they're always telling us, at night you keep all your lights off. You never use roads controlled by the enemy. You don't use the same route going out to use coming back.
You did every day.
We did that. We did the same friggin' thing every day, driving down the road, all of our lights on enemy-held roads.
What do you think? It was stupid or smart? You had to do it that way, right?
We pretty much had to do it that way because it was such a huge logistical effort. It took so many tons of supplies, thousands of tons of supplies every day. There aren't enough roads to vary everything.
And did you get attacked doing that job?
We got really lucky, which kind of had its own drawbacks.
They got attacked by a group of prostitutes. We got really lucky. The only time the prostitutes were trying out for attacking people.
We had IEDs, improvised explosive devices, roadside bombs. We had a couple go off in front of us. We had them go off on the sides and not hit us. We had the closest one we had was one blew up about 25 meters behind my Humvee one night as we were sitting still. And it actually hit a different convoy that was turning behind us, and it blew up one of their trucks and blew rocks and crap all over my Humvee. It didn't hurt any of us. It blew up the truck, but it blew up the back of the truck, and the guy driving up front was fine.
No one got hurt.
He shit his pants. But
that's worse for his ego, dude. That one follows you forever.
But that was pretty scary. Because we're sitting still in the Humvee. We're at the very back of our convoy, and we're at an intersection, so that we had to stop because we're on a real narrow road, and this other convoy was coming out and turning behind us. So we're stopped, and I was BSing with my driver, and I remember we were talking about Ben Stein. And as we're talking, my gunner stands up because this one particular truck in the other convoy that was moving was making a weird noise, and he thought something was wrong with it. So he stands up and he's looking at it, and as I'm sitting there talking to my driver, all of a sudden the inside of the Humvee just turned orange. It lit up orange.
Of your Humvee?
In my Humvee. And then I just felt that boom, and that thump, and you feel it go through your chest and shook the Humvee.
Oh, shit.
And
you shit your pants.
No, I did not. I'm lucky because I
didn't come home with the Purple Heart. He came with some brown underwear.
I was there's another story about that, but
the training kicked in.
But my gunner screamed and dropped down on the seat, and we thought he'd been hit. And I remember snapping my head back and seeing this truck in flames roll down the highway, and it was actually it was the box of an 18-wheeler that blew up. It blew up under the box, under the trailer, and so that thing was in flames, and the driver gunned it, and so he went rolling down the highway in flames, but the cab was okay.
I bet that looked awesome too.
I remember a quarter second of seeing that, and it's the weird things that happen in those situations. I also remember looking that way and seeing the flames, and then hearing a little tick, and I turn and look forward, and right in front of my side of the windshield, I'm in the front passenger seat, a pebble had landed right in front of the windshield on the hood, and I saw it shaking as it settled, and as the orange light from the explosion's fading, and I'd have this perfectly clear recollection of seeing that,
of a movie scene, kind of.
Yeah, something like that. And and then there's all this screaming in the Humvee. We're screaming at the gunner, and he's screaming that it's fine, leave him alone, and he was probably pissed off. Maybe he shit his pants. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
screaming that it stinks.
Yeah, but we're screaming, and then my team leader's on the radio screaming. Ask for a situation report, a sit rep, what's going on, and it's just all this chaos until we realize everyone's okay. And then it's just we're laughing about it and joking and pretending it didn't bother
wasn't
us.
That funny, guys?
Yeah.
We
we
you laughed that you're still here.
I start laughing, and I made a joke. Team America was real popular at that time, and if you remember the line about when Gary Johnson, the way his brother died is he had blueberries in his pocket and he got killed by the gorilla at the zoo, and so we're making jokes, but I forgot we had blueberries in the Humvee, stuff like that.
But you had to do that. When you get back, does it settle in? Fuck, I almost died today.
It kind of settled in right then. But but we had those things happen. I mean, that was the closest one. But we had one night we were on this side of the highway, and the Humvee coming on the other, or the convoy on the other side of the highway got hit, and so it blew up back behind my Humvee and hit a truck. We got shot at several times.
Were they just bad shots?
They were terrible shots. And so what a lot of them would do, and I was told a lot of these guys were they were kind of frat boys from Jordan and Syria, and so they go to Iraq to be part of the jihad, and for them that means they're hiding on the side of the highway 100 yards away. A convoy goes by, they stick an AK up,
and just blindly
fire
shoot.
A magazine, and they would always shoot high. So tracers would go over everything.
And they would always put
nothing
tracers?
touch our truck. The only ones we could see, right? But they would fire a magazine and then stop. And so we never even we were never able to figure out where they were. And
but they go back and brag that they
go back and brag that they went and fought the Americans, right? So we never had a direct fire engagement in Iraq. I fired 4 shots. All of them were warning shots. 2 of them were shots.
2 of them were at your bunkmate. Get back,
Worse than that, 2 of them were at I guess you call it a herd of donkeys on the highway that wouldn't get the hell out of the way.
Hey, donkeys.
I'm sorry, of camels. It was a herd of camels. I fire a shot. These camels were all standing right in the highway. I fired the first shot. They're like, "Whoa, what was that?" And so I fire another shot, and they're like, "Oh, there it was again," and they don't move. And anyway, stupid freaking camels. But anyway.
And so that was all the action. So was it? And then you were there 11 months. When you went home, were you fuck yeah, I'm glad this shit's
well, okay, I was like that when I was there. Okay, so
you're I'm glad I'm here.
It was extremely frustrating to never get in a fight, because you never get to, you have all this pent up tension and you never release it. Everybody wants to fight the enemy. All this shit about people say like, oh, the soldiers don't want to get into combat. I'm like, yeah, whatever. We were out there wanting to get in a fight. Well, we could never get in a fight. They never wanted to actually have a firefight with us. So one particular mission, my team got split up for leave. And so when I come back from leave, half my team is gone, and the rest of us are getting parted out to fill in with other teams. So I get told, hey, Sergeant Hernandez, you're going to be a gunner for such and such other team. And I was like, oh, thank friggin' God. I don't have to be in command of anything. I'm just the gunner. I'm just going to shoot, right?
He's trying to shoot people.
Yeah,
that's all. Thank God.
Thank God, right? So I'm on this Humvee. The Humvee's got an M240 machine gun, which is a big, beautiful machine gun. The replacement to the M60 that we all saw in Full Metal Jacket, that Animal Mother carries in Full Metal Jacket.
Okay, yeah,
right?
that big old.
The big one, right? So it's got a mounted M240.
It's not a 50 cal?
No. My Humvee had a 50 cal. This one had an M240.
It's a big ass.
It's a big ass gun.
Yeah.
The only weapon I ever shot at anyone with is a 50 cal. Yeah, but anyway, so it's got this M240. I bring along a light machine gun, squad automatic weapon, plus my M4 carbine. I've got everything laid out the way I want it. Like, all right, let's go. Let's get into something, right?
Let's kill some shit.
So we go roll out.
Thank God.
Yeah, and what we do is we roll out at night, go to our destination, which was Camp Victory in Baghdad. On the way up, it's all tense, like what's going to happen? And nothing friggin' happens. So we get up there, crash out during the day. That night, we load up with another convoy to come back. As we're coming back, we pass a convoy going the opposite direction. It turns out it was another one from my company with one of my good friends. Dave Garcia was in this one. But we pass, nothing's going on. We get about 3 minutes down the road, and then I hear Dave Garcia on the radio. He keys up, and he's screaming, Apache 2-1, contact small arms fire, east side of the road. I can hear his gunner firing that 50 cal in the background. And when I heard that, I ducked down. Yeah, I ducked down in the Humvee and looked at the team leader. I was riding the team leader's vehicle, and I was like,
go back.
I was like, what the fuck? We were just there, and nobody shot at us. And it was frustrating because
Mom and Dad were thinking the same thing. They were like, I hope my son gets shot at tonight.
I told Dad the whole time that I was guarding gates. I was guarding gates at the bases.
I remember when I talked to you one time, and you said,
don't tell Dad. Don't tell him what I'm actually doing.
Yeah,
because I had too much shit to worry about already. I couldn't worry about Mom and Dad freaking out.
Yeah, I know. I get it. They worry about me going to shows.
Yeah.
You're on the road, and I'm like, I know.
Oh, Mom today was worried that Angela wants me to go stay at our sister wants to go stay at her house so I can help take care of her dog one night. And she's like, but there's no food in the house. We want anything to eat. Like, oh my God.
Find me starving to death in Angela's house. Yeah, you hear about Chris? He barely made it, dude.
I might have to eat the dog or something. I don't know.
They caught him eating the dog in the backyard because there was no food for the day he was there.
Yeah, but we were so tensed up all the time, but then you never get to let it out. So we wanted to get into fights, and so the fact that I never got in a fight in Iraq was actually really frustrating. I came back home, and I was just wired.
So when you'd come back, you would go back to being a cop in Houston.
Yeah, I went back to being a cop.
Good luck for the next guy that gets pulled over for speeding.
No, you know what? I was so part of it. Like I was so thankful to be home. I was joking about like I'm gonna go find the gangsterest dude that I can see walking down the street and say, "Oh man, I'm so glad to see you.
I love you."
Yeah. But I've had a weird thing as a cop. Part of it because I was always so small, is that I learned how to talk to people, and I actually became more of a people person as a cop than I was before, and I really just like talking to people. So when I came back from Iraq, I wasn't all tensed up taking it out on people, but I had my most productive year as a cop after I came back, because I was wired all the time. I was always looking. I was always rushing to get stuff, and I made a ton of good arrests. Like on bad dudes, robbers and stuff. And
Hey,
nothing personal.
Give us all a bad rap there, buddy.
But I did a lot of good stuff during that first year home, and there was one interesting moment where one night I had to go take a leak, and I'm not going to say. It's in the Houston area. I never say what agency
you can say take a leak in here.
Yeah, but no, it's just talking about where I'm working. I'm in this industrialish area, and I needed to go take a leak. I'm in the Houston area. I don't say what agency I work for, but
the cops.
I work for the cops. So I go into an alley to take a leak, and I get out of get out of my car, and then I realize there is a cardboard box just sitting right out there in the middle of the alley. In Iraq, it was pretty common for the enemy
an IED
to cover, like they would put, I mean, it'd be real obvious sometimes. There'd be artillery shells with a cardboard box over them, and then they were wired, and they,
in Houston, it's called housing.
Yeah, so it's sometimes not that nice, but
you were in a nice neighborhood, maybe. I don't know.
But I get out in this alley, and then I see this cardboard box, and I was just sitting there looking at it, and I said like out loud, fuck you, cardboard box. You're not gonna scare me.
Yeah, don't blow up on me.
Yeah, no, I was like, you're not gonna scare me. I'm not gonna let this bother me. And then I tried to take a leak, and I couldn't do it.
And I on the cardboard box.
I had to get back in the car and go somewhere else
because mentally it was telling you that you might die. You might pee next to this cardboard box.
Right? Yeah.
And fight or flight is where you hold your caca and you pee in. Like you're out in the woods, you're out in the woods trying to pee in caca, and a bear comes at you. You're gonna stop doing both of that and run your motherfucking ass. So that's what happened. You're peeing you.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
See, I should be a doctor.
You should be a
therapist.
Missed
my calling. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that's a form of PTSD?
No.
But people would milk that as a form of PTSD.
Oh, people would milk it, yeah. And that's another whole topic of people milking crap and outright lying and exaggerating and all this crap to get money.
I know that's one of your pet peeves. That's one of my pet stolen peeves, valor and all that.
Yeah, it's not just stolen valor, because there are the guys who outright lie about stuff, who make stuff up, and then there are the guys who
embellish.
The guys who embellish, and the people who are claiming victimhood because it makes them money. And I mean, in addition to being dishonest as fuck, it also, I think, it ruins them. Because once, like, the VA now says I'm 100% disabled with PTSD, and now they're just going to lay around and do fuck all, nothing for the rest of their lives.
But when you get that 100% PTSD, do they like watch you to make sure that you're not doing other stuff, so that there are some people are encouraged to not do anything because they could lose it?
They are not
supposed to get a job.
They are not watching nearly enough. So I don't have a disability rating. Yeah. I don't get disability anything. I've never tried. I'm not disabled. You know. My understanding is that guys get to a certain percentage, or at some point they're rated unemployable or unable to work, something like that. And that's not necessarily automatic with the 100% rating. But I mean, we get guys in law enforcement who are 80, 90% rated disabled. And they're cops working the street. And I don't understand how.
Because
I don't know how they can do that.
Are those usually the cases of people that slap around a dude and get complaints against him? No?
No.
Because I know that was a topic that people were saying that, like cops that were reservists or whatever, going off to war, getting PTSD, coming back, getting back on the force, and then not being able to handle a high-stress situation and doing something stupid like the George Floyd thing and all that. It was happening left and right, for a minute.
Well, I don't think so. I don't think there's any connection. I would also say that the average cop has experienced way more trauma than the average soldier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the stuff that we face day to day, if you're working in an area where there's any kind of a crime problem, you're going to see murders, you're going to see rape victims. You're going. I mean, one of the most memorable things that I had when I was working in a small town was showing up to a minor accident in a neighborhood at night. The speed limit's like 25 miles an hour, and this accident gets called out, and then it gets called out as a fatality. And I'm like, what the hell? What happened? I show up there, and there's all of these emergency vehicles, and I drive through all of them, like weave through all of them, and I see an undamaged civilian car sitting in the grass. I also see a woman sitting on the curb freaking out, screaming, and there's a little kid standing next to her. And all of the volunteer firefighters are just standing there doing nothing, which is weird. If you know volunteer firefighters, they love
to be the hero.
They love freaking out and going, flying 100 miles an hour. Like all of them in that town would put emergency lights in their trucks, and I would joke that they didn't need sirens because they drive everywhere with their heads out the window, screaming the whole time.
Yeah.
But they're just standing there. So I drive through this scene, and I'm like, where the hell's the accident? Did somebody run into a car or what? Or run into a house or what? So I get out, and that civilian car in the grass is the only one there, the only civilian car. Everything else is a first responder vehicle. So I go walking up to this car, turn on my flashlight, and right where the light beam shone on when it turned on It was in the back seat behind the passenger seat. And on the floorboard, there's a kid's head. And I was looking at it.
ISIS.
You know, no,
ISIS was in the car.
This was 1996, I think. So I was looking at it, and there's something called normalcy bias. Okay, when you see something
and you just don't believe it's
crazy,
real.
you don't believe it's real.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, these mass shooters, the guy in El Paso, he walks into Walmart with, you know, holding an AK,
people that are frozen.
And everyone's like, oh, this guy must be looking for airsoft BBs for this, you know, airsoft gun, something like that, right? And it's happened to me a couple of times, right? So I looked at this kid's head, and I was like, the kid must be stuck between the seat and the door, and only his head is sticking out into the back seat.
Like when you say kid's head.
He was 2 years old. Yeah. And then I realized, no, the head's turned the wrong way. And so I leaned forward, and there's a headless body in the front seat. Unfortunately, it was already covered with one of those yellow emergency blankets, but they're kind of see-through, and you could see the spot, you know, all the blood from right there at the neck. And, you know, that was the woman who was sitting on the sidewalk freaking out was
the mother?
His grandmother. But she was driving around with her nephew and grandson looking at Christmas lights. This was Christmas season. And she accidentally blew a stop sign. But when she told me she realized that as she was blowing the stop sign, she was like, oh, you know, I didn't stop for the stop sign, but there's no cars coming, and I'll just keep rolling through. Well, it was a T intersection. She didn't realize it. On the other side wasn't even like a regular curb. It was like a little concrete slope. So a witness said she hit the slope, the front of the car bounced up, and apparently when it came back down, it popped the airbags.
The airbag decapitated
And the
him?
airbag decapitated this two-year-old boy. He was unsecured in the front seat. Oh. And you know, like later on, I looked in the car again, and there's like a spray of blood on the roof as like his head was spinning, you know, as it went in the back seat. And that was 8 days after I worked my first fatality accident, which was where a group of people in a convoy on their way to a wedding get hit head on by a drunk, legally blind ex-con driving like a big Chevy Good Times van. He passed out on the highway going about 90. He had just passed an off-duty cop. He's going about 90, passes out, crosses the median, comes up on the other side. And there's
oncoming traffic?
Yeah, there's these 5 cars going down Highway 59 on their way to this wedding. And he sideswipes the 4th car, takes off part of the driver's arm, and then hits the last one head on. And so the guy driving was a retired Navy dental technician. His wife was an RN. There's two RNs in the back, and he wiped them all out. And
you were first on the scene?
I was first on the scene, yeah. And so, like, his windshield had popped out. He went out through the opening. Didn't even go through the glass.
Who went out? The guy?
The drunk. Yeah, the drunk goes out.
He didn't have a seatbelt on.
He didn't have a seatbelt on. But the entire, like, the seats broke off and were partway through the opening. And on the way out, he broke his leg, and then he cut his face when he hit the pavement, and he was fine.
The dude?
The drunk, yeah.
Was he awake when you got on the scene?
Yeah, he was rolling around trying to get up, and I didn't know who he was. I had to tell him, like, hey, man, stop, stay right there. But I pull up on the scene, and, I mean, I'm like 23 years old, I think. Had been a cop for maybe a year. And there's all these cars stopped on the highway, and all these people running up to me screaming, these people over here need help, and this one, and I'm like, holy shit, what do I do? And
the Bee Gees were there?
But, yeah,
were the Bee Gees were coming out of the cars?
That's what it sounded like.
You can tell by the way
yeah, but it was really overwhelming, and I got to pretend like I know what to do, and fortunately in this small town.
Try giving everyone mouth to mouth.
Yeah. We had a bunch of DPS troopers that worked out of one of the local stations, and they were all getting off work right then. This was about 3 a.m. And 4 or 5 of them just showed up all of a sudden and start telling me, hey, you may want to do this, you may want to do this. And I was like, motherfucker, just tell me what to do.
Yeah, I may want to get in my car and drive off and quit this damn job.
Take this over, yeah. But yeah, so there was that one.
And so wait. And the car, all 4 of the other people were dead in the car, and you just walked in and looked in the car. And
one of them supposedly still had vital signs when they pulled her out, but then she died on the way to the hospital, I believe.
But what do you do? Do you just look in the car and go?
They were crushed in the car. So like the front passenger seat, the dash was completely over her head, like we couldn't even see her, and the others were all crushed. I mean, we couldn't do anything. So we had to wait for fire department to get there with the jaws of life and rip this car apart to pull these bodies out.
Oh man.
But yeah, there's that kind of stuff. There was a stabbing call I rolled up on one night. It was outside of an illegal alien club. Comes in as a stabbing.
Legal alien clubs are out there, dude. That's
so,
not in New Mexico areas. What is it? Area what?
Area 51.
Area 51. That's what they're at.
No, this was the other kind of illegal alien, and not the ones you were talking, not the ones from Haiti.
Oh, not the wet blacks.
So I show up on this scene, and it's call of a stabbing. I get there, the club is closed. There's a pickup truck sitting there with the driver's door open, and there's like 3 women standing at the driver's door. Everything looks nice and calm. So I roll up, get out of the car. Everything looks okay. The women turn around, look at me, and I see they're crying. And I thought, okay, well, something happened. So I go walking up to this car, shine the flashlight on the driver, and he's laid back. He's got his head back against the headrest, and he had been shot in the head from about, that far away with a .38. That hit him right here, came out here. So all of this part of his skull was gone. And I'm looking at his head's canoed, like they say it's you can see the brain and all that stuff. And not only is he still alive, he was awake. And the women are talking to him and telling him, like, you're going to be okay, you're going to be okay. And he didn't talk, but he was nodding, reaching up and wiping his face, and I saw that. I was like, oh, shit. And then the women started saying the guy ran that way. And in this alley where they're pointing, there's a little storage building, and the door's partway open. And I was like, motherfucker! Now I got to go look, And so I go and grab my shotgun. Well, you think
you would stop and save Canoe Head there?
How?
Are you gonna call? So what do you do?
I mean, I called for an ambulance, but
so this dude's head's canoed right here.
I said I got a guy with a gunshot wound to the head. I need an ambulance like right now.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah. So we need an ambulance right now, and then I grabbed my shotgun and went and looked in this storage building for this guy, and fortunately he wasn't there. That was one of the few times as a cop I've been scared after seeing that dude's head and hoping this other
obviously that dude was trying to do some shit to get away after canoeing the motherfucker's head.
He's right. And then when the paramedics showed up, they were kind of stunned too. But then the guy gets out mostly on his own. They're telling him, like, okay, sit on the stretcher, lean back, and he's following all the directions. And when he laid back, I don't know why they hadn't put a bandage on his head yet.
His brains fell out.
No, but it was like somebody had a pitcher of blood and it just started pouring out of his head. And they, hurry up and they stuff gauze on there. And I asked one of the paramedics, I was like, well, what do you think, man? Is there any hope? And he was like, no way. There's. And
did you ever find out, do you ever check and see if people made
they identified. It was actually a friend of his, asked him for a ride home, and he told him, I'm kind of tired, why don't you call a taxi? So the friend shot him in the head.
Well, of course, dude.
Yeah.
I'm
not saying he's wrong, right? Yeah,
but of a ride home.
Yeah, and then, of course, he jetted to Mexico.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So do you have any other stories with happy endings like that?
Yeah. Well, the point I was getting at is that the average cop sees a lot of terrible crap.
That was in your first fucking week, right?
No. This was when I had been on for 10-ish years, But we see a lot of awful stuff, and maybe the cumulative effect that we have from seeing all that over and over, I would say that that's worse than what the average soldier experiences, even when they're deployed.
Yeah.
Because most soldiers who deploy never see
any action.
Right. And even... and then there's kind of this misunderstanding that being in combat is traumatizing. Being in combat itself is exciting and challenging.
It's being away that's traumatizing.
No, it's if you feel like you're fucked up, especially if you feel like you got someone killed, or if you feel like if you feel guilty about something. But combat itself is just really, really exciting. And
like playing a video game, huh?
No, better. I mean, it's better.
Well, I'm sure it is better.
It's like.
Have you ever been in a firefight as a police officer?
I was in one shooting where I didn't shoot, but I knocked on a door, and a guy started hitting the window to the side of the door with the gun, trying to point it at me.
They thought you're Jehovah's Witness.
I was yelling, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness.
He's like, no shit.
I'm not Amway. I'm not trying to tell you anything. But I was like,
the Bee Gees were in the house.
Yeah, I was out of the way, like trying to melt into the paint on the door on the other side, and pointing my weapon at the door and yelling at the guy, drop the gun, and another officer this was on the second floor landing of an apartment complex, and an officer down in the courtyard wound up shooting the guy.
Killing him?
No. He
and he had a gun?
Yeah, he had a gun, but
okay, well, you can't answer your door with a gun? This is Texas.
Well, you can't answer the door pointing it at someone, and he didn't answer the door. So I knocked on the door, and I was like, hey.
Even worse, did you shoot me? I didn't even answer my door, damn it. You shot me through the door. So he shot him through the wall.
Through the window. He shot him through the window. But I knocked on the door saying, hey, police, you're not in trouble. I just need to talk to you. The dude was not in trouble. And then I hear
he started shooting at him.
Yeah, and then I hear this tapping on the window, and I leaned back and looked, and I'm looking down the barrel of a gun, and the guy was hitting the window with it as he kept turning it.
Were you in uniform?
Pointed at me. Yeah. Yeah. So that I've never been in a firefight. I was in that one shooting. I've never shot at anyone as a cop. I was
you don't know what you're missing out on.
Yeah, I don't have any particular desire to shoot at anyone.
And you're
as a cop,
in a city where there is so many shootings.
I'm in an area where there's a ton of shootings, and I have been really lucky that I never have had to shoot as a cop. I've come close.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I've been real lucky that way.
And it is not easy to be a cop nowadays. After what okay, let me ask, what's your take on the whole George Floyd thing? That cop was just an idiot.
I don't know. Like, okay, I don't think he intended to murder George Floyd.
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
I think he was just being a dick.
He was being a dick. He was, his authority was challenged. His ego was challenged. Like from my take, from looking at it, and I've been a cop 27 years, right? I was watching that video and thinking all the other cops on that scene they're all uncomfortable. They're all like, he shouldn't be doing this.
But no one knew how to say
it. But in law enforcement, there's such a point about the guy. It's his scene. He's in charge. You do what he says. Yeah. You don't know what it looks like to him.
Trying to take over.
It's not so much about disrespect. It's you don't know what it looks like to him. There's a whole lot of like you weren't there, or even if you were there,
perception.
The perception could have been very different, and a lot of times that's true. Okay, so like I was on a deal once where we raided an apartment, and one of the officers I was with like freaks out, screaming at someone, pointing the gun at him, and I'm like, dude, calm the fuck down. Well, I didn't know when we went in the door because I was looking a different direction. The guy that he was freaking out on was holding a knife, and as soon as we got in, the guy recognized the cops, fortunately, and tossed the knife. I didn't know any of that happened. Okay, even though I was right next to him.
Yeah.
So, like literally, if you have a 2-inch difference, like he's standing here and you're standing 2 inches off his shoulder, your perception could be completely different. Yeah. So there's a reason why we say you have to understand how it looks to that officer, but it goes too far and it turns into this like you can't question him. He's in charge.
You think that's what happened in that situation?
I think that's what happened in that situation. Well, one of those rookie officers who was like 2 days out of the academy, he even said it. He even said, hey, should we put him on his side? What about positional asphyxia? And Chauvin was like, don't worry about that. And just overrode him. And that's actually something that I'm trying to change in my department, that I've actually helped with training on this. The same thing was happening with airline pilots, where it would be like an airline pilot, the guy who was in charge of the plane would be making some terrible error.
And no one could stop.
And the other guys are like, are you sure you should be doing that, Captain? Yeah, shut up, I know what I'm doing. And the pilots would just stomp all over the junior guys and then cause a crash. In one case, they killed, I think it was 583 people.
But the captain was right. He had to do it. In his head, his head,
he was right. Yeah, So we're trying to recognize that, hey, we're having the same kind of dynamic here, and we need to counter that. We need to, we're all on the scene together. So we're all working together.
Is that a big focus now on
I hope it is.
Situations and scenes like that where there's multiple officers involved, and one officer's got the situation, and maybe he's being a little aggressive where they're encouraging people to jump in, and someone has to say something, or all of you got the three others, the rest of y'all huddle up and say, hey.
Yeah, I mean, now there's a lot more encouragement to like step in there and say, hey, bro, let me take this, man. I'll go ahead and I'll handcuff him. I'll put him in the car, whatever. I'll keep in mind, I don't work the street anymore. I've been off the street for 10 years.
Prostitution gets tough out there.
It does, yeah. I mean, just your lips get so chapped.
That sun, the Texas sun, boy.
But Yeah, I don't work the street anymore, so I'm just getting it from hearing things from other officers. And now there's a lot more of a, hey, let's do this different. It wasn't quite that way when I left the street.
Do you think that's due to the cameras?
Part of it's due to the cameras. Part of it is due to just us growing as a profession and realizing that, hey, some things needed to change. I mean, there's certain things like the what the heck was his name? Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson. Mm-hmm. Absolute lies. He was on his knees with his hands up screaming, don't shoot, and the officer shot him in the back because he's a racist. Absolute lie. And every investigation showed that was an absolute lie. The officer was doing his job. Brown was an identified suspect. Brown attacked him, tried to take his weapon in the car. There was a shooting that happened in the car, and then Brown runs away. And the officer gets out, yelling at him to stop. Brown turns around and charges him. And the dude is 6'4" and almost 300 pounds. And the officer's already been attacked once, right? So
and he shot and killed that.
He shot and killed that guy, right? So and then people say, "Why didn't you just shoot him in the limbs?" The BGs again, saying, "Why did you shoot?"
The BGs are very controversial.
Yes, they are. So
shooting
and then it turns out the officer did accidentally shoot him in the limbs, and it didn't stop him. So there's just a lot
going on, and it's going on so fast,
right? But there's a lot of like anti-cop hysteria that's absolutely stupid. On the other hand, there were very valid criticisms of the way we have always done things, and there are things that we needed to change.
Yeah. That whole defund the police bullshit.
Yeah, that's I mean, I'm not defending the defund the police movement, but I agree with actually some of what they say.
Yeah, no. There's always some valid points where they couldn't even get that platform,
right?
To be realistic.
If they had said it something different, because like a lot of cops have argued some of the same things for a long time.
That's NWA. They said fuck the police.
Well,
and they kind of phrased it a little bit different.
I'm not sure exactly what they mean.
Yeah, but they were saying defund the police,
right,
but they said
they
it
spelled
wrong.
it wrong or something, right?
Yeah.
So.